Hi, and welcome to the End Times Guide podcast. My name is Lee, and I am honored to have you along with me today. Gorgeous, gorgeous day in southern BC heading into Washington. My goodness, it's just gorgeous. Today, I am a professional tourist. It's an inside day, so I don't have to get out and actually work. I just drive the truck, and I love to do that. I feel like a professional tourist today. Got the shades on, got the coffee cup full, and it's just gorgeous out, blue skies, and it's beautiful country down here. So I'm relaxed, I'm enjoying myself, and I thought, hey, what a great time to talk about divorce. And I'm someone who knows a thing or two about divorce. I've been married twice and now just about divorced twice. And I want to share my experiences with you because I have not received much grace from a lot of Christians in regards to divorce. They look at you as if you're a pariah. And let me give you a little bit of background. The first time I was married, I was very young. And I married a gal who I was crazy about her, head over heels in love. But at that time, what I was looking for was a mate. And she was pretty, and I was physically attracted to her. We didn't have much in common. We weren't friends by any means. I shouldn't say that. We were friends. She was a part of the same group of young adults I was. We were friends, but it wasn't that we could sit down and have a heavy-duty intellectual discussion, or her desire for the Lord was the same as my desire for the Lord. But we started to kiss and things got more intense. And it was that wave of emotions and endorphins that carried us to the altar. Now, we stood at the altar and we made vows before God. And I was all in. I fully meant every word I said. But she wasn't the same person as me, which it was my own mistake. I assumed because she was a Christian, these vows before God meant literally life and death to her as well. But they didn't. The day we were married, she wanted the marriage annulled. And it really surprised me. Where is this coming from? We're on our honeymoon. We're supposed to be happy. And she is saying, no, I made a mistake. I want the marriage annulled. Where did this come from? I was knocked out of left field. Can you imagine the feeling of you and the woman you love like crazy going to marriage counseling on your honeymoon? It was very, very weird. And I had warning signs of this. As we were dating, she went off and started flirting with my best friend. And he was into it too, and off they went. And I thought, so be it. If you like him more, then it's better that you go with him. And the pastor at the time, he was the youth pastor and young adults pastor, said, his counsel was, you better chase after her. And I don't know why. I listened to him, and it was, in hindsight, the worst advice to give me. It should have played out naturally. It could have spared me 11 years of absolute living hell. But I chased after her, and we ended up married. After her wanting the marriage to be annulled, she decided it was all right. She wanted a baby. I've always wanted to be a dad, and I went along with it. And 6 months after we were married, she was pregnant. And a short time after that, we had a baby. And things during her pregnancy went fairly well. There was definite happiness. And then the baby came along. Now, she did not do housework. She was not the kind of girl who believes in housework. And I didn't realize at the time I was in Aspie. And in a messy environment, my anxiety just skyrockets. So it was a very big struggle for me. I was working 12 hours in a plumbing shop, plus I would work 2 hours delivering papers, plus an hour, half hour commute each way. So a grand total of 15 hours a day I was working, and the paper route went on the weekend as well. I was up at 3 in the morning to deliver my papers on the weekend. And, you know, God gave me a very strong motor. I guess the only way I can explain it. I've always been a hard worker. I've never backed down from a hard job. So I would be doing this. I would be doing housework, and I was even getting up with the baby in the night. She sat around in her pajamas all day, didn't do any actual work. And when I came home, she didn't want the baby. She wanted her own time. So I was basically going around the clock and doing my very best and believing that this was my part. This is, you know, I wanted to do my best for her and for our family. And I didn't feel like a victim. But it was about, oh gosh, 6 months after the baby came along that she met a gal in church, and they started talking about what a POS I was. And my darling bride and the mother of my child agreed with her. I was a complete POS. They went out to the bar and partied, and she met a hockey player and spent the weekend with him. And came back, took my daughter, and moved out. And that night I sat on the edge of my bed with my gun. A part of me wanted to finish myself off. You know, it had been a very, very hard couple of years. But I'm not a suicidal person. I couldn't go through with it. And she went on to attack me so viciously, like you would never imagine. She went around the church telling people I was abusive. And the opposite was true. She was actually very physically abusive. She would kick me, punch me, on and on. But I'm a man. I don't cry like a little baby. I suck it up. You know, you can't hurt steel. No matter how hard she hits, she's not going to hurt me because I'm made of steel. And that was my thoughts of what a man is. And I still stand by that. A man is strong first and foremost. So she accused me of being violent, of being abusive and coercive and everything else. And the people in the church hated me. They literally turned on me. And it was hard. I went to another church for a while. And then in time, I went back to that church. I thought, you know, they are my family. And I've done no sin. I've committed no sin. And I went with the faith that those things done in darkness will be revealed in the light. And in time, I had honest folks coming back and apologizing to me for believing the gossip. And it felt good that, you know, some of these people had seen the truth, but many others hadn't. Now, for the next 10 years, I would endure all manner of persecution at her hands. This woman who vowed to stay with me for the rest of her life, to honor and cherish me, had become invested in destroying me. She really wanted to destroy me. And I think it was because a part of her realized the greatness of her own evil towards me. And she didn't want me to be okay. She didn't want me to continue walking with God while she was living a life of utter depravity. It went on to the point where she developed a reputation in our hometown as the girl you could go to for a good time. She was using drugs and was sharing a place with a known prostitute. And my daughter was being kept in an addition on their trailer. This is way up north where the winters are pretty intense. -40 is pretty normal. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking Celsius or Fahrenheit, it's the same thing at -40. Very, very cold. And honestly, anything below -30 is just painful. And the room my daughter and the daughter of this prostitute were in, the ice was forming on the inside window. It was so cold in there. And I went for custody of my daughter. I was not drinking, not partying, not doing drugs, going to church, working 40 hours a week, sometimes 50, well, honestly, mostly 50 to 60 hours a week, but I never got paid overtime. That was our agreement. But I worked hard. I was an honest, moral person, and I went for custody. And I had as witnesses a woman she called mom and two women that she lived with who were willing to testify in court that she was an unfit mother, that she would bring strangers home from the bar, and those strangers would be up with my daughter in the morning while she was sleeping. And I knew this was true because this was regular for her to sleep till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I went, well, first of all, her lawyer told me that and that's not entirely right. Her lawyer's assistant told me that the court date had been postponed, but I went to court anyways. I told my witnesses that the court date was postponed, but a friend of mine gave me the advice that, you don't know that that's true. So I went to court and I wasn't prepared because I'd been told the date had been postponed, but sure enough, the date had not. They lied to me. And I confronted the lawyer on this, and she just thought it was hilarious. And she smugly said, "Oh, really? I'll give her hell for that." And she's smiling. She's mocking me. And I stood before the judge, and the judge didn't let me open my mouth. He just looked stupefied and said, "I can't see any grounds for you having custody at this time. End of case." I couldn't believe it. I took note of his name, Judge Levi, and I felt bad for that man because he was wearing robes that were too big for him. He was wearing shoes that were too big for him. And he will give an account, because I want you to know I have 2 daughters that I raised who are mature. They're 18, almost 19 and 17 right now. Pure, mature, godly, intelligent women. They aren't little dogs that run around trying to dress themselves up to lure boys. Their lives are better than that. And I am a wonderful father. I've loved them with everything I had. I've given them all I had to give. I poured into them all the lessons I had to pour into them, which is natural for a parent. And I know that because that's what the Holy Spirit led me to do. And the result of that, the fruit of that, is my daughters love me with all their heart. We are best friends now, and they desire to walk with God. They are pure. My younger daughter, I told her, what you could do is tell them, "No, I don't want to lie." I mean, can you? Oh, it's just such a joy that the first thought in her head is, I don't want to just tell them anything. I don't want to lie. That isn't me. That is the hand of God on their lives. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But Judge Levi put my daughter into a situation where today she is the very maddest of the mad left. Pro transgender, pro LGBTQ. posing and all the rest of this. And she is a very dark person. And that judge had the power that day to give her a good life. And she didn't get that good life. What she got instead was hell. And I tried to minister to my oldest daughter. I shared the gospel with her. I shared my conversion with her, the power of God. And all I got in return from her was hatred and mockery. I can't talk to her today. She's 23 and we have no relationship at all. She is as strong for the Antichrist as I am for Christ. And Judge Levi will give an account for that. I've forgiven him, but I fear for that man in judgment. That's one instance of a young girl that he sentenced to live in a terrible, terrible, terrible place. And her eternal soul, as a consequence, is forfeited. I don't know. I continue to pray for her and hope that God will work a miracle in her life. And I won't give up. But if she were to die today, she would go to hell. And Judge Levi played a part in that. And her mother played a part in that. And I want you to know that I've forgiven her mother completely. There have been times where her mother wanted, hey, baby, let's get back together and work things out. The first time it was because she wanted a car that I just bought, but didn't have money to insure. I went along with it. I wanted my family. So she said, I'll go and insure the car for you. And I was like, well, if we're getting back together, I gotta show her my trust in her. Okay, you go ahead and insure the car. I didn't know what she'd done. She'd insured it in her name only. And she got herself a key cut that I wasn't aware of. And then the next day, the police showed up at my work and accused me of stealing her car. I was her mechanic, and I'd fixed her car and then stolen it. So I want you to realize the things that this woman was doing to me. The second time, I think she was sincere. She wanted to get her life right, and part of that meant getting back together with me. And I told her, it's like you have this Labrador puppy that you bring into your home, and you start off by petting it and loving it and caring for it. And then one day, without any warning at all, you just started kicking it until it couldn't move and it couldn't get up. And now you're coming back and you're reaching out to pet, and I'm scared. And she understood at that time, what she'd done, I think. I think that little story got through to her. But there was just not enough courage in me to try and work things out with her. I didn't have the faith in my heart that it could be worked out. And this was after we'd been apart for a number of years. So it was hard for me to learn to trust again. I'm going to have to pause right now, and it'll be a 2-part podcast. It's so long. I have so much to say on this. So it will be 2-part, and the next part will be, I guess, part 2, my second wife.